It's a win that potentially saved your life. Hello guys, welcome back to my channel. Just a little heads up, don't be surprised if a little cat jumps on the table because she's very cuddly today. But let's start with the video. And today I want to talk about seeking help when you're in a bigger body and being ashamed of seeking help when you're in a bigger body. Because if you were ever affected from weight loss, and I'm pointing it out that way because an eating disorder and also restrictive eating doesn't always come with like a massive weight loss, and I want to continue working against those stereotypes. But if you are ever affected by weight loss, or if you're in recovery and gaining weight for whatever reason, chances are that you will struggle with certain emotions when it comes to doctor's visits, when it comes to looking for a therapist, when it comes to sharing your story, all these kind of things. So apart from comments that your family, your friends, co-workers, whoever might make, which I hope not gonna happen, but I also know that many people actually think it's okay to point out certain things, to comment on your body without being asked. So apart from this, chances are that seeking help, like medical help, professional help, can be harder for you when your body changed a little bit. At least that's what I experienced. Because as long as I was in a very, very sick and undernourished body, I actually didn't have a problem to go to the doctors. I mean, yes, sometimes it was a little bit annoying because I'm gonna make another video about things doctors said to me when I was like very sick, which is ridiculous, but I was never really ashamed of it. Like, yes, I had to explain a lot. Yes, I had to do a lot of blood work, all that kind of stuff, but people would take me serious and people would take my doctor's visit serious. When I gained weight and when my body finally fell into a healthy weight range, this was very different. So because I've done a lot of research, I read a lot of studies, all that kind of stuff, I actually knew what to expect. I knew what I wanted them to check. I knew that I wanted them to check my thyroid. So after gaining weight, I actually asked, I told this story before, so I'm gonna wrap it up real quick, but I asked my doctor to check my thyroid hormones. And first of all, they didn't want that. It was not my regular GP because that GP is amazing. Like when I still lived in Germany, I loved her. She was like in my hometown. So that doctor was amazing, but these were doctors in the clinic I was at. And unfortunately, they didn't take me serious at all. They were like, oh no, there's no reason to check your hormones. I was like, yes, there is. I'm just coming out of a very restrictive eating disorder. Telling them basically the background so they should be able to explain to me, not the other way around. So it took me 6 weeks to finally get them to check my blood. Turns out I had thyroid issues, still have them. And you know, this happened with a bunch of stuff. I also even had a therapist who basically told me that she didn't believe I've ever had an eating disorder because it would be basically impossible to recover without being in a clinic. And I recovered on my own, or back then I wasn't recovered yet, but I gained weight on my own. So all these events of not being taken seriously led to the fact that I, for some time, actually didn't share my story, that I even avoided going to the doctors. Until this day, I posted a video a couple of weeks ago about medical gaslighting, and the sad thing is, as annoying as this doctor's visit was, I actually expected it. Like, I'm not even surprised anymore. Like, I still sometimes find myself avoiding going to the doctors because I actually already know what's going to happen. I know how untrained many doctors are. I know the comments they might make. And I just don't want to, keep up with it. So, to get back to the topic, here are a few tips. And of course, I'm not going to be able to heal your body image with this video. I'm not going to be able to make you see yourself the way probably a lot of people see you, a lot of people that love you see you. Because that's something I've been noticing in the last couple of days and weeks. There are some people in my life that I love to death, that I deeply love, and it makes me very sad that they can't see themselves the way I see them. Sometimes I wish I could like put some glasses on them and make them see themselves the way I see them, but that's not gonna work. But I will try to talk about my experiences and experiences of some people I work with and talk to. Number one, don't let the gaslighting of other people lead to gaslighting yourself. What I mean by that is it's very easy, especially in recovery, it's very, very easy to believe what a doctor, a therapist, or anyone else tells you. So if a person tells you something like, oh, your eating disorder was never that bad, or says something about your weight, it's very easy to believe it. Remind yourself that First of all, gaining weight and being in a bigger body is not a failure. It's actually the opposite. It's a huge win. It's a win that potentially saved your life. And this is something we have to keep in mind. It's a win. Even though when you're still in recovery, it might feel like a failure. But I promise you, if you keep going, you will come to a point where it will feel like a win. At first, I felt like a failure. Even like I told you before, I gained weight rapidly, so I was pretty soon at the weight I'm probably still at. I'm not weighing myself. There was no like long period of gaining weight. It actually happened pretty quickly. And again, like in the beginning, it felt like a failure. But now, honestly, I know that I saved my life. I know that I'm like starting to tell my story, that I published a book on Friday in Germany, that, you know, all these things, and it doesn't feel like a failure anymore. Don't let the gaslighting of others lead to gaslighting yourself. The second thing is you are allowed to set boundaries. If you live in the US, you're very familiar with the system. You get weighed at every doctor's visit. I will never understand it, because if I'm going to the doctors because I have a herniated disc, like it just happened to me, there is no reason to weigh me. Like there are a few occasions where I understand that the doctor needs to know your weight, especially when they measure something, or I don't know, whatever. But in like 95% of the cases, your weight is not important at all, and you're allowed to say no. Like the first time I went to urgent care, they weighed me, and all I said was, I don't want to know my weight. And then they printed it out, I saw it, and it was a big drama. Now I'm at the point where I'm like, I prefer not to be weighed. Just like this. Sometimes they look a little bit surprised. Many times they actually accept it, and it's not a problem at all. So setting boundaries can be a huge challenge, especially in recovery, but it was also my biggest game changer, because once I started to set boundaries around my family, around people I worked with, around doctors, my recovery actually took a turn to the better. The third thing is you are allowed to get help. You're valid. Your weight or your habits, or if you're still like engaged in certain habits, do not define the fact if you're allowed to get help or not. I just posted a video about me starting therapy again, even though I'm not in a crisis, and that might be the first time in my life where I'm starting therapy without being in a crisis. And it's more than fine. I'm not taking anyone else's place. I'm not, doing anything bad. I'm just looking out for myself. So changes in your habits or changes in your weight, especially when you're gaining weight in recovery, do not mean that you're automatically fine and that you don't deserve help. You deserve help just as much as anyone else. And I know that it is hard to believe for yourself, but that's why I'm pointing it out. Maybe you have to hear it from someone else. So remind yourself, setting boundaries is super important, and it might be the biggest game changer in your recovery. I was surprised, to be honest, but it worked. Don't let other people's opinion be the gaslighter of yourself. You know what you've been through, you know your own feelings, and you've been through, you know how you feel, and that's more than valid. And if you want to get blood tests, if you want to get checked, that's fine. You don't need to explain yourself. And if you get the chance, I know it's not always possible, if you get the chance and your doctor doesn't want to do certain tests, try to look for another doctor. Again, I know it's easier said than done, but please try to take yourself seriously. Please get those tests and please get checked. And number 3, understand that you're just as valid as when you were in a smaller body. Again, I know that these tips will not make your whole situation a lot better. It will not heal your body dysmorphia. But I just wanted to point out, because sometimes we need to hear it from someone else. Sometimes we need to hear it from somebody who has been through the same things. So if you feel comfortable, I would love to hear your experiences. If you're struggling with the topic right now, let me know if this video helped a little bit. So if you would like me to cover other topics. Let's get this going, folks. Keep fighting. Please, 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 one day at a time. Always choose recovery. I promise you it is possible. I know how bad the worst days can feel, but I also know how great the best days can feel, especially after recovery. It is worth it, and I just want to remind you folks of it. I will see you in the next one.